Hello, my name is Mitch Tidwell, and I'm with SBTC Collegiate, and today we're talking about creating a family environment within your ministry. I've got with me here today Drew Worsham. Drew, how are you doing?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Good to see you, man. Glad to have you back. So Drew is the college and young adult pastor at Community Bible Church in San Antonio, Texas. Fall 2019, planning a church, right?
Yeah, September.
Cool. So one of the things I love about Drew and his crew and his team is how they create a family environment within their ministry. And I really think we don't create family environments just for the sake of it, but it's really the way like Jesus made disciples. Like I think when you look at the way Jesus made disciples, he got these men together who some of them were strangers, but he brought them together to become family. And I really felt like that fostered a disciple-making environment. So Drew, you stepped into Community Bible Church how long ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Exactly.
All right, so you come in a stranger. Mm-hmm. You've got a church that's, how are you guys with college students? How was that?
Very little influence.
Okay.
Large mega church, seeker sensitive, but almost zero influence of the college students. So we had a young adult ministry that had, I'd say maybe 60 people. They were kind of targeting 18 to 39 year olds. So yeah, huge gap. Yeah. Most people were in their 30s. Half of them were married, half of them had kids. And so I don't think there was a single college student in the college young adult ministry.
Wow.
So.
All right, so that's your ministry. Over the course of time, we'll fast forward a little bit, that you begin to reach some college students. Now, how do you take, you got college students in your ministry, how do you take these students and how do you move them from being strangers to family without because I think sometimes here's what happens is, maybe we have a midweek on Wednesday night, so I come to midweek, but I'm bouncing, I'll see you next Wednesday. You still kind of feel like strangers sometimes when you come into those environments where it's just kind of small talk. So how do you help a ministry, even if it's a ministry of 12 people to a ministry of 200 people, how do you help create for them to feel like this is my family, these are the people that I do life with?
Yeah. Well, we're definitely not anti a gathering or doing an event. Yeah. But I think sometimes as church leaders, we put all our eggs in that basket, and that's really all we do. And so, and we would never say it this way, but a lot of times our small groups or our missional communities or our on-campus evangelism, really all that is it's marketing to help get the event a little bit larger. And so I think at some level the college students, young adults know where your priorities are. Yeah. They can sense it. They're pretty in tune. And so if that's the case, they're going to go, okay, this is what you value. You value an event. And like you said, people walk out of those events oftentimes experiencing no more community than that of going to a movie theater with a bunch of random strangers. Had a great experience, enjoyed watching that, but we walk out and high five and maybe I'll see you down the road. But we're not really family. And I think in some ways we're still strangers. So for us, we had to figure out, okay, what does that look like? Because the heartbeat of every college student, young adult who comes to a gathering, what they're coming for, I think, is to be known. Even if they can't voice that, they go, I'm going hoping that I brush shoulders, that I get to meet some people, that I can develop a family. I don't want to do life alone inside of the city or on the campus. And so how do you do that on a Thursday night or Wednesday night or Tuesday night, whenever you have that event? And it's difficult. And so what we started doing is we said, hey, I think it starts with staff and it starts with key leaders. If they're not experiencing family, there's no way for them to leave and create family. We did this, my wife and I have been going through the foster care system, going through classes. And one of the first classes, something that was said that really just, struck me so hard was, he said, hey, there's roughly, there's several thousand kids that are growing up in orphanages. And he said, well, they don't call them that, these the foster system, but that's what they are. And he said that kids weren't meant to be raised in institutions. They were meant to be raised in homes. And that struck me, and I was like, okay, wait, how funny is it that we have these people who go from death to life, born again, these spiritual babies that are meant to be, they want to be raised as children, and we've somehow tried to raise them in institutions or an event world versus actually in our homes as a family. And we're commissioning our people, go make family, and they're like, I have no idea what that even looks like. Like I can't even, like all I know is the institution. All I know is Bible study. All I know is programs. And so we had to start that, and we started it with just going, hey, come do life with us, be in our home, and we'll teach our staff and we'll teach our core team how to do this, and then we'll send you out.
So you started, obviously, from the top as a leader. You're getting your leaders on board, creating family with them, and then hoping that eventually that would become culture, like that would just kind of wave itself through the student body. So how does, let's just say, all right, I'm a leader, college leader. I've got a couple other leaders or just main influencers in my ministry. I've got them here, but how do I create that family? Is it going out to eat? What is that? How does that even look like practically?
Yeah, so the small, simple thing is after every gathering, we go to like one of the nearest restaurants that can kind of host and create a this Tex-Mex restaurant, and we just go and we eat dinner. That's helpful, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's a jackpot. Yeah. For us, what we did is we chose a different night of the week, and so let's say like a Sunday night or went Monday night and said, hey, why don't you come over to our house? Almost like, not like it was required, but kind of like we expect you to be at our house. We're going to share a meal together. We'll take turns cooking, so we rotate and sign up, and you come early to our house and you use our dishes, and you make a meal, and then we share a meal and we share life together. And then we use that time to essentially breathe life into them and maybe do some training at some point. And so we're teaching them how do they share their story, how do they share the gospel, how do they love people, how do they engage the campus. And so what happened is then once a month we would throw these parties at my house. So it's like, hey, this has been great. We're loving each other. We're starting to figure out how to do community together. Let's invite our college friends over and let's just throw a party. And so that they got to just be a part of it. What we noticed is that over the course of those parties, people were engaging these strangers, loving them, sharing the gospel with them, and over the course, not just at the party, like maybe they build a relationship and then follow up with coffee. But then we had these students that would give their life to Jesus and go, hey, can I be a part of what you guys do on Tuesday night? And so we found out that it's so much easier to invite someone to a dinner table than it is to invite someone to a church building. And that's kind of how, and we watched these things grow. And then we got to where we couldn't fit people in our house. And so we would say, hey, it would be like if Mitch, you and your wife say, hey, well, why don't you guys start doing this at your house? You've been walking with us for a couple months, 6-7 months. You got it. Take as many people as you want and start this in your home. And so, for us, we didn't invent that. It's not rocket science. This is what, a lot of churches refer to. It's what we refer to as missional communities. It's a family that's on mission. And that was just what happened. And then it multiplied. And then over the course of really the last year, it went from 1 to now 11 missional communities, many of them having 20 to 30 people in their homes. That's
incredible. So going back to thinking about family, we, as we frame that conversation, there's really a lot of, family, people love each other, they're accountable to each other, but yet this family environment is also really a tool for evangelism and actually reaching people with the gospel. Because I think, as you said, people weren't meant to be raised in institutions. And I think even when we think about culture, our culture and where it's at today, you just see a lot of brokenness in homes. And I think people are longing for that family environment, a place where they can belong, a place where they feel welcomed and wanted, and all those kind of things. And what you see is that when you have a Christian community and people that are far from God see that becomes very attractive. And just this family of doing life together that's fun really has a lot of purpose behind it, because lost people are coming to know Jesus through it. So that's pretty sweet. So there's two sides of family. It's like purpose and play. Like, hey, we're going to have fun, but man, there's a lot of purpose behind this thing. And we think we have to separate those two. But really, those two is what creates the family.
Side by side.
Yeah. How has this affected, what are some of the things that that you could, as far as you mentioned, like opening up your home, having a meal, what are some other things that just pieces of wisdom of how you can begin to implement a kind of a family environment in your ministry?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, ultimately it all lands on culture.
Yeah.
And culture, I think, comes from the leadership. And so, like, are you, as a pastor, you can tell people you should open up your home, you should do life like this, you should be on campus. But if you're not on campus, your leaders aren't going to be on campus. If you're not opening up your home, like, your leaders aren't going to open up your home, or they're not going to open up their home. And so I think it's doing it. One of the things that we've done, it's constantly inviting people. You tell yourself, hey, our home's open, college students swing by, and they test you. You're like, do you really mean that? Or is that, because, we say those things. We go, oh my gosh, anytime you need anything, just let me know. And then we just assume that you don't really mean it. So we had to train our people in that. So for example, and I know this can be extreme for some people, but we got a keypad on our door. So that we could actually give out, instead of handing out keys, we could just say, hey, this is the code, swing by anytime. And we would have college students that would come over, and it would be late, because they don't have any awareness of time. And so it's midnight, and my wife and I would go to bed. And they go, oh, sorry, we'll leave. We'll go, no, don't put that pressure on us, because what you're communicating to us is that we have to stay up and entertain you for you to stay in the house. Yeah. You know how to lock the door. We'll see you tomorrow. And little things like that have trained our people to go, oh, it really is our home. We've had those dinners like on Monday nights where Jane and I have been out of town doing events, and we go, you guys know what to do. And they still host it at our house. And so, I mean, right now we have 2 college students that are living. That's as of this week. Like they just were like, hey, situation, I need a place to live for a couple months. Yeah, totally. We got 2 extra bedrooms. And so they just moved in, 2 separate college students, 2 separate stories. And, it takes a little bit of like, is it okay if I stay here? Are you sure? And, but we've created that environment, both of the, it was 2 couples that started living together, and God has been working on their heart. And they're like, I don't think this is what God is asking of us. Both brand new believers, all 4 of them. And so we want to do this God's way, but we can't afford a separate place. So we're like, oh, cool. Well, the ladies come live with us.
That's awesome.
So, but it's just, it's having and developing that culture where people start to really believe, like, you mean it. Like, your home really is open. And so for us, I mean, you're talking 4, sometimes 5 nights a week. People are over at our house. But that also, not just the campus, that happens in your neighborhood. Gosh, we have our non-believing neighbors over to the house. Throughout the week. And sometimes it's quick, just, hey, go swing over, we got extra food, hang out. But it's developing that to where your neighborhood actually becomes a little bit of a family. And we're getting to watch that, which is really cool.
So I imagine when you're doing that, one, you got to create the margin to have that space, be okay with people coming in. I think we have a tendency in ministry to we kind of put on a face, but what you're doing is you're kind of letting the guard down. Hey, come in, come see my life, come see the way that I love my wife, that I treat my child, that that we're doing life. But and we don't think about this stuff as like disciple making, because sometimes we think, well, this isn't really disciple making. Disciple making is sometimes we need to be in a study, we need to be doing something like that. But really, this life on life, just seeing godliness lived out, really enhances disciple making.
Yes.
And as again, when it becomes culture, you don't have to force it. It just becomes that. So I think that naturally kind of the students begin to embody that themselves.
Well, and I want to encourage, because I know that people listen to or watch these videos and go, okay, that's good for you guys. That's a little extreme, maybe even cultish. But gosh, and I'm married, I have a 4-month-old kid, and life it's actually easier this way, I would say. So you have to get over yourself and just to go, okay, hey, our house isn't clean all the time. That's not real life for us. We don't always eat steaks and potatoes, when people come over. Like, a lot of times we have mac and cheese and hot dog weenies that we cut up. And so if you come over and you eat with us, that's what's on the menu that night. And so inviting you into our regular, messy life, and that's where real discipleship happens. That's what Jesus did. He said, come follow me. Like, John's disciples go, where are you staying? He goes, well, come find out. Come stay in the tent with me. And Jesus just invited these 12 teenage boys into just walking with him and living life with him. And that's where the teaching, we've somehow condensed, I think, discipleship into information transfer. So let's meet up, have coffee one-on-one, and I'll tell you all the things that I know. And I think that was a tool that we had to use in the past. And I'm not kind of shaming that, but I love how Paul would tell us in 1 Corinthians. He said, hey, you've got 10,000 guardians or mentors, people who will teach you information, but what you lack is spiritual parents. You lack spiritual fathers. And the difference between a mentor and a father is a father does life side by side with his children. And I know with my daughter that I can't meet with her at Starbucks, once a week and go, okay, sweetheart, let me tell you how to be the best kid, tell you how to love your mom, tell you to do your chores. Okay, sweet, I'll see you next week. Yep. No, for her to fully develop into all that God has called her to be, she's got to do life with us, like every waking moment. Now, that's way messier. But it's way simpler. So it's messier and simpler, and somehow we've taken discipleship and we've made it sterile and complicated. I don't know how we did that.
Yeah, it's a great thought, because even you look at Paul in 1 Thessalonians, he uses the imagery, I was like a father to you, I was like a mother to you. And great illustration with your daughter. Like, I don't sit my daughter down at Starbucks for an hour and say, all right, we'll see you next week. And really, as disciple makers, we do become spiritual fathers and mothers to those, and which takes more than a once a week kind of thing. It's a sharing of life. And man, great. That's a great illustration, man. That blessed me.
Well, we need to see the messy parts as well. And I think it's easy over coffee. Or what I really want, if I was discipling you, I want you to see the polished presentation of myself, where I have, really clever things to say. My marriage is going great. I'm the best dad. I'm the best, employee. And I want to give you and present that to you. And oftentimes I think that's why we don't make disciples, because we feel like, well, I'm not there yet. And I think what we have to tell ourselves is we don't have it figured out. And the people that we're discipling need to know that. Yeah. And so I invite you into my life. And we say this often at our church. If I'm discipling you, you need to see me get frustrated. You need to see me get upset. You need to see me at some point say something inappropriate to my wife. And what I mean by that is, because the reason for that is because more than anything, you need to see me repent. And you need me to go, hey, Mitch, like, I shouldn't have said that to Jane. Like, I crossed the line. I was in my flesh and I blew it. And I'm going to go apologize to my wife. Hang tight, and they need to see, how does a godly man repent? And they need to see how does a godly man buy groceries? How does a godly man change his oil? Like all those things. We live in a fatherless generation, and in some ways a motherless generation, and we think discipleship is holistic, and the only way that happens is when you invite them into the family, which is what the church was meant to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, you bet.